Thank you. Close the doors, please. And presenting the finalists in dramatic oral interpretation, Miss Wendy Raikopoulos, St. Catherine's.
The first is participant 199, Margarita Fox.
Tell a story. Tell another story. Stories falling as thick as snow to bury what happened. But it won't work anymore. So, this is what happened. Morning Ruby, by Helen Dunlop. It was a warm evening in August. Adam was home, and so for once I didn't need the babysitter when I went out to work. I had to be at the bar at 7, and usually I'd have bathed Ruby first. But it was such a beautiful evening that Adam thought he'd take Ruby to the park after they'd eaten. It would be light until 8:30. Ruby wanted to ride her bike. She just started to ride it without stabilizers, which was good for a 5-year-old. Adam always made her wear a bike helmet. They were still eating when I left. They were sitting together at the table, eating macaroni cheese. "Have some of your lettuce, Rubes," I said. I was standing at the mirror, tying back my hair into its tight knot. I put on lipstick and blotted my mouth. I was pleased with the way I looked, even though I knew it didn't much please Adam when I walked out of the door on my way to the bar. "I'm going to work now, Ruby," I said, as I always did. "Have you got to?" she asked, as she always did. "I'll come in and give you a kiss when you're asleep," I said. "Even if I'm fast asleep?" "Even if you're fast asleep. I'll tiptoe in. I won't wake you up." I said the same words every time. They had no meaning except to satisfy Ruby. I straightened up and smoothed down my dress. I kissed Adam too, and then I started looking for my keys and couldn't find them, so I was late. And I think I forgot to call goodbye. But when I got to work, there was a problem. Anna had changed shift because her babysitter couldn't come in the next day. I told Anna I'd do the shift the next night. I walked back out into the sunshine, so everybody happy. Ruby would be so pleased. I wouldn't tell her I was working tomorrow. Today was what mattered with Ruby. It was 10 to 8 as I went out of the door and locked it. The sun was on my back, the air thick and golden as syrup. The sun was going down and the light was beautiful after the stale whiteness of the day. I noticed a few plain leaves on the pavement, dry and brown. I thought of the thick fallen leaves of autumn and how Ruby liked to jump and stamp on them. I was walking fast, hoping to get up to the park, up its long green slopes and into the children's play area. Well, Ruby was still there. High up on a swing, maybe. Her heels in the blue air, her red curls tipped back. She was always yelling at me to push her higher, and I was always holding back, not wanting her to go too high. I was coming down the road, looking down towards the end. I had a clear view. The main road was ahead of me, cutting across, and opposite was the road that led downhill from the park. And there was Ruby. The sun was full on her face and she didn't see me. She was running down the pavement and Adam was behind, bent over the bike to push it. One hand on his saddle, the other on the handlebars. Ruby's bike helmet was strapped to the handlebars. She wasn't far ahead of him. 2 cars went along the main road, hiding her. Then, there she was again, racing downhill. The gap between her and Adam was wider now. She was running faster than he could keep up with her, because of the bike. She always stops at roads. She's never run into a road. But look how fast she's going. Adam, she's too far ahead. The gap between them. Stop, Ruby, stop, Ruby, stop, Ruby. Ruby! I shouted, Ruby, stop there! Ruby heard me. She looked up as she ran, squinting through the sun which was behind me and full in her face. Ruby saw me. She didn't stop. She took off racing for me with the wilderness that she knew was safe because my arms were there. She would spring through the air that divided us, thud into my body, and would break her fall. I saw things in a jigsaw all at once and very clear. Adam dropped the bike. He was off the ground. He was tearing for Ruby in great leaps. A dark blue car flashed round the bend in the main road. Adam! He was behind her. He was fast, but the gap was too big. I was running, and Ruby was running for me, full tilt into the dazzle of the setting sun. I don't think she even saw the main road. The blue car skidded. The brakes screamed and the wheels tore at the road. I saw the blue car go sideways past me with Ruby on its bonnet. The driver's mouth was wide open. Then the car hit the side of a plane tree and Ruby was thrown off. I watched her fall on her back, on the back of her head. Her body convulsed. She was moving. She was alive. She was trying to get up. I was on my knees in the gravel. Don't touch her, don't touch her, don't touch her, said Adam. She arched again as if the road was shocking her. Then she went still. She went small. Adam held his mouth over her mouth, trying to find her breath. There were people pressing round us. I looked up at them from all fours like a dog. I rang on my mobile, said a man. They're sending an ambulance. He's a doctor, I said. Her father's a doctor. I barely see Ruby. I bowed down so my face was almost touching her foot in its dirty trainer. Ruby's trainers were never dirty like that. I always put them in the washing machine every week. Her pink jeans too. Stuff all over them. I lay on the road and stroked her ankle inside the thick trainer. Adam was still crouched over Ruby. But he wasn't breathing into her anymore. He'd stopped. He wanted me to look after her now. I lifted my head and saw Ruby's face, shocked sideways and covered in muck. I knew I would have some wipes in my bag. I always carried them, for when Ruby ate ice cream, or there wasn't any paper in public toilets. I would clean her face, and then I'd put her jeans in the washing machine, and her trainers. I would come back and wash the road with a bucket of water, and Ruby would help me swoosh it over the gravel. She would like that. It was possible to open Adam's grandmother's grave and put Ruby there with her. Adam wouldn't have a heavy coffin for Ruby. We didn't want her to feel locked in. The coffin was made of a special kind of cardboard and it was so light that Adam carried Ruby in his arms by himself. Give her to me a minute, I said. I held the box and I could feel Ruby. She was heavy, and I had to brace myself to take her weight. You're getting a big girl now, Rubes. You get down now. I can't carry you anymore.
Thank you, Margarita, I think. Participant 112, Alexander.
better not never tell nobody but God. You killed your mommy.
Dear God, I'm 14 years old. I am. I always have been a good girl. Maybe you can give me a sign, letting me know what's happening to me.
The Color Purple by Alice Walker.
Last spring, after little Lucius came, I heard him fussing. He was pulling on her arm. She said, "It don't soon, Fanso. I ain't well." Finally, he'd leave her alone. A week go by, he'd pulling on her arm again. She said, "No, I ain't gonna. Can't you see I'm already half dead?" She went to visit her sister, the doctor, over Macon. Left me to see after the others. He never had a kind word to say to me.
Just say you gonna do what your mommy wouldn't. You better shut up and get used to it.
But I don't never get used to it. And I feel sick every time I be the one to cook. My mama, she happy because he cooked to her now. Too sick to last long. Dear God, my mama did. She died screaming and cussing. She cussed at me that I'm big, that I can't move fast enough. He don't say nothing. He just sat there by the bed, holding her head and crying, talking about, "Don't leave me now, don't go." She asked me about the first one. Whose is it? I say God's. I don't know no other man, or what else to say. When I start to hurt, and then my stomach start moving, and then that little baby come out chewing on its fist, you could have knocked me over with a feather. Mama, she got sicker and sicker. Finally she asks, "Where is it?" I say, "God took it." He took it. He took it while I was sleeping. Killed it out there in the woods. Kill this one too if he can. Dear God, he act like he can't stand me no more. Say I'm evil and I'm always up to no good. He took my other little baby, a boy this time. But I don't think he killed it. I think he sold it to a man and his wife over Monticello. I got breasts full of milk running down myself. He said,
"Why don't you look decent? Put on something."
"Well, what am I supposed to put on? I don't have nothing." I keep hoping he finds somebody to marry. I see him looking at my little sister. She's scared. But I say, "I'll take care of you. With God's help." Dear God, my little sister Nettie's got a boyfriend almost the same shape as Pa. His wife died. She was killed by her boyfriend coming home from church. He only got 3 children though. He's singing Nettie in church, and now every Sunday evening, here come Mister. I tell Nettie to keep to her books. It'd be more than a notion taking care of children ain't even yours. Dear God, he beat me today because he said I winked at a boy in church. I may have got something in my eye, but I didn't wink. I don't even look at men's. That's the truth. I look at women, though, because I'm not scared of them. Sometimes he still be looking at Nettie, but I always get in his lies. Now I tell her to marry Mister. I say, "Marry him, Nettie, and try and have one good year out of your life." After that, I know she'd be big. But me, never again. A girl at church said you get big if you bleed every month. I don't bleed no more. Dear God, Mister finally come right out and ask for Nettie's hand in marriage. But he won't let her go.
He say she too young, no experience. Say mister got too many children already. Plus, what about the scandal his wife calls when somebody kill her? Dear God, I asked him to take me instead of Nettie while I knew Mommy's sick. But he just asked me what I'm talking about. I'll tell him I can fix myself up for him. I'll duck into my room and come out wearing horsehair, feathers, and a pair of our new Mommy high-heel shoes. He beats me for dressing trampy, but he do it to me anyway. He still come that evening. I'm in the bed crying. Nettie, she finally see the light of day clear. She's so scared she go outdoors and vomit. But not out front where the two men sits. Mister say, well, sir, I sure hope you don't change your mind. He say, no, I can't say I is. Mister say, well, you know my poor little ones could sure use a mother. Well, he said, real slow, I can't let you have Nettie. She too young. Besides, I wanted to get some more schooling, make a school teacher out of her. But I can't let you have silly. She the oldest anyway, she ought to marry first. She ain't fresh though, but I expect you knows that. She's spoiled. Twice. But you don't need no fresh woman nohow. He spit over the railing. Mister, he don't say nothing. I stopped crying, I'm so surprised. She ugly, he say, but she ain't no stranger to hard work. And she clean, and God don't fix her. You can do everything just like you want, and she ain't gonna make you feed it or clothe it. Mister still don't say nothing. Fact is, he say, I gotta get rid of her. She too old to be living here at home, and she a bad influence on my other girls. But Nettie, you flat out can't have. Not now, not never. Mister finally speak, clearing his throat. I ain't never really look at that woman, he say. Well, next time you come, you can look at her. She ugly, don't even look like she kin to Nettie, but she'll make the better wife. Mister say, how old she is. He say, she a 20. And another thing, she tell lies.
Thank you, Alexandra. And the next participant, please. 187, Nicole Kelms.
Memories define us. So what if you lost yours every time you went to sleep? Your name, your identity, your past, even the people you love, all forgotten overnight. And the one person that you trust may only be telling you half the story. Welcome to Christine's Life. Before I Go to Sleep by S.J. Watson. The bedroom's strange, unfamiliar. I don't know where I am, how I came to be here. My eyes adjust, and I look around in the near dark. A dressing gown hangs off the back of the wardrobe door, and some dark-colored trousers are folded neatly over the back of the chair. But I can make out little else. It is then that I hear a jarring intake of breath behind me, and I realize I'm not alone. I turn around, and I see an expanse of skin and dark hair, flecked with white. A man. He has his left arm outside the covers, and there is a gold band on the third finger of the hand. I suppress a groan. So this one is not only married and old. Not only have I slept with a married man, but I have done so in what I'm guessing is his home, in the bed he must usually share with his wife. I lie back to gather myself. I ought to be ashamed. I fold back the covers gently and sit on the edge of the bed. First, I need to use the bathroom, fearful of choosing the wrong door, fearful of choosing the wrong door, of stumbling on a lodger, a teenage son. Relieved, I see the bathroom door open. I run and lock it behind me. I sit to use the toilet and turn to wash my hands. I reach out for the soap, but something's wrong. At first, I can't work out what it is. Then I see it. The hand gripping the soap does not look like mine. The skin is wrinkled, the nails unpolished. And like the man on the bed, the third finger of the hand was a plain gold wedding ring. I stare for a moment, and then wiggle my fingers. The fingers of the hand holding the soap move also. I gasp, and the soap thuds into the sink. I look up into the mirror. The face I see looking back at me is not my own. The hair has no volume and is cut much shorter than I wear it. The skin on the cheeks and over the chin sags. The lips are thin, the mouth turned down. I cry out a wordless gasp that would turn into a shriek of shock were I to let it. And then I notice the eyes. The skin around them is lined, yes. But despite everything, I can see that they are mine. The person in the mirror is me, but I'm 20 years too old. This isn't possible. Beginning to shake, I grip the edge of the sink. Another scream starts to rise in my chest, and this one erupts as a strangled gasp. I step back, away from the mirror, and it is then that I see them. Photographs, taped to the wall, to the mirror itself. Pictures interspersed with yellow pieces of gum paper, felt tip noted, damp and curling. I choose one at random. Christine, it says, and an arrow points to a photograph of me. This new me, this old me. The name seems familiar, but only distantly so, as if I'm having to make an effort to believe that it is mine. There's a man in the photograph. We are both smiling at the camera, holding hands. He is handsome, attractive, and when I look closely, I can see that it is the same man I slept with, the one that's lying in the bed. The word Ben is written beneath it, and next to it, your husband. I gasp and I rip it off the wall. No, I think. No, it can't be. I scan the rest of the pictures. They are all of me and him. I step back further until I feel the cold tiles against my back. The skin above my eye is also cut. It is then that I get a glimmer of memory. As my mind tries to settle on it, it flutters away like ashes caught in a breeze, and I realize that in my life there is a then, a before, the before what I cannot say, and there is a now. And there is nothing between the two, but a long, silent emptiness that has led me here. I go back into the bedroom. I still have the picture in my hand, the one of me and the man I'd broken up with, and I hold it in front of me. What's going on? I say, I'm screaming, tears streaming down my face. He stands up. I'm your husband, he says. His face is sleepy, without a trace of annoyance. You have been married for years. He stands up. Here, he says, and passes me the dressing gown, waiting while I put it on. We got married in 1985, he says. 22 years ago. You... What? I feel the blood drain from my face. The room begins to spin, but he takes a step towards me. How? Christine, you're 47 now, he says. I look at him. This stranger who is smiling at me. I don't want to believe him. I don't even want to hear what he's saying, but I know that I must. You had a car accident, he says. A bad accident. You suffered head injuries. You have problems remembering things. What things? I say, meaning surely not the last 25 years. What things? He steps towards me again, approaching me as if I'm a frightened animal. Everything, he says, sometimes starting from the early 20s, sometimes even earlier than that. My mind spins, worrying with dates and ages. I don't want to ask, but I know that I must. When? When was my accident? He looks at me, and this time his face is a mixture of compassion and fear. When you were 29. I close my eyes. Even if my mind tries to reject this information, I know that somewhere that it's true. I hear myself start to cry again, and as I do so, this man, this Ben, comes over to where I stand in the doorway. He puts his arms around me. I do not resist as he pulls me in. He holds me. Together we rock gently, and I realize that the motion feels familiar somehow. It makes me feel better. I love you, Christine, he says. I know I'm supposed to say that I love him too. I don't. I don't say anything. How can I love him? He is a stranger.
Thank you, Nicole. And the next finalist, please, is participant 28, Natalia Voril.
A freed soldier is often furious. The days and nights he lost, the torture and humiliation he suffered, it all demands a fierce revenge, a balancing on the accounts. Burn! Morton yelled. The mine shaft exploded from below. This was over, he said to himself. Over. Eddie squeezed the trigger. Whoosh! The fire shut off quickly. He couldn't be sure, but he thought he'd just seen a small figure running inside the fire. Hey! Eddie yelled, stepping forward, lowering his weapon. Hey! The roof of the barn began to crumble, splashing sparks and flame. Eddie jumped back. His eyes watered. Maybe it was a shadow. Eddie, now! No, wait. I think there's nobody in there. Now! Nobody knows what happens to us when we die. We hope to go to heaven, but we wonder, will anyone be there to meet us? When he was a young soldier, Eddie went through tough times. Many years later, when his time comes and he passes away, someone is waiting for him in heaven, someone he never expected. The little girl appeared to be Asian, maybe 5 or 6 years old, with a beautiful cinnamon complexion, hair the color of dark plum, a small flat nose, full lips that spread joyfully over her gap teeth, and the most arresting eyes. She smiled and flapped her hands excitedly until Eddie edged one step closer, whereupon she presented herself. Tala, she said, offering her name, her palms on her chest. Tala, Eddie repeated. You burn me, she said. Eddie felt his jaw tighten. What did you say? You burn me. You make me fire. Her voice was flat, like a child reciting a lesson. My mommy say to wait inside the nipa. Mommy say be safe there. Wait for her. Be safe. Then big noise. Big fire. You burn me. She shrugged her narrow shoulders. Not safe. Tala, he whispered. Tala, she said, smiling at her own name. Why are you here, in heaven? Eddie swallowed. His hands trembled. He looked into her deep black eyes and tried to smile, as if it were a medicine the little girl needed. She smiled back, but this only made him fall apart. The darkness that had shadowed him all those years was revealing itself at last. It was real, flesh and blood. This child, this lovely child, he had killed her, burned her to death. The bad dreams he'd suffered, he deserved every one. He had seen something, the shadow and the flame, death by his hand, by his own fiery hand. He wailed then, and a howl rose within him in a voice he had never heard before. A howl that rumbled the river water and shook the misty air of heaven. I killed you, I killed you! Then a whisper, forgive me, oh God, forgive me! And finally, what have I done? What have I done? At some point, when his anguish had quietened, Eddie felt a tapping on his shoulder. He looked up to see Tala holding out a stone. You wash me, she said. She stepped into the river and turned her back to Eddie. Then she pulled the embroidered barrow over her head. He recoiled. Her skin was horribly burned. Her torso and narrow shoulders were black and charred and blistered, and when she turned around, the beautiful, innocent face was covered in grotesque scars. Her lips drooped. Only one eye was open. Her hair was gone in patches of burned scalp, covered now by hard, mottled scabs. You wash me, she said again, holding out the stone. Eddie dragged himself into the river. He took the stone. She raised her charred hand, and Eddie gripped it gently and slowly rubbed the stone along her forearm until the scars began to loosen. He quickened his efforts until the singed flesh fell, and the healthy flesh was visible. She leaned backward into him, resting her head on his collarbone, shutting her eyes as if falling into a nap. He traced gently around the lids, and then he did the same with her drooped lips and the scab patches on her head, until her plum-coloured hair emerged from the roots, and the face that he had seen at first was before him again. When she opened her eyes, the whites flashed out like beacons. Then the river rose quickly, engulfing Eddie's waist and chest and shoulders, and before he could take another breath, He was submerged in a strong but silent current. His grip was still entwined with talons, but he felt his body being washed away from his soul, meat from the bone, and with it went all the pain and weariness he ever held inside him. Every scar, every wound, every bad memory.
Thank you so much, Natalia. And our final finalist, participant 309, Bruce Willis.
Doodle was just about the craziest brother a boy ever had. Of course, he wasn't crazy like Miss Old Lady, who was in love with President Wilson and sent him a letter every day, but was a nice crazy, like someone you meet in your dreams. He was born when I was 6 and was, from the outset, a disappointment. He seemed all head with a tiny body which was red and shriveled like an old man's. Everybody thought he was going to die. The doctor had said that he mustn't get too excited, too hot, too cold, or too tired, and he must always be treated gently. A long list of don'ts went with him, all of which I ignored once we got out of the house. From The Scarlet Ibis, by James Hurst. There is within me a knot of cruelty, born by the stream of love, and at times I was mean to Doodle. One day, I took him up to the barn loft and showed him his casket, telling him how we had all believed he would die. "Before I help you down from the loft, you're going to have to touch it." "I won't," he said. "Then I'll leave you here by yourself." "Don't leave me, brother," he cried. He reached toward the coffin. When he touched it, an owl flapped out into our faces, and Doodle screamed. He was paralyzed with fear, so I carried him down the ladder, and even when we were outside, he clung to me, crying, "Don't leave me! Don't leave me!" When Doodle was 5 years old, I was embarrassed at having a brother of that age who couldn't walk, so I set out to teach him. We were down in an old woman's swamp, and it was spring, and the sick, sweet smell of bayflowers hung everywhere like a mournful song. "I'm going to teach you how to walk, Doodle," I said. He was sitting comfortably on the soft grass, leaning back against the pine. "I can't walk, brother," he said. "Who says so?" "Mama, the doctor, everybody." "Oh, you can walk," I said, and I took him by the arms and stood him up. He collapsed onto the grass. It was as if he had no bones in his little legs. One day, after many weeks of practicing, he stood alone for a few seconds. When he fell, I grabbed him in my arms and hugged him, our laughter pealing through the swamp like a ringing bell. Now, we knew it could be done. Once I had succeeded in teaching Doodle to walk, I began to believe in my own infallibility, and I prepared a terrific development program for him, unknown to Mom and Daddy, of course. I would teach him to run, to swim, to climb trees, and to fight. We set the deadline for these accomplishments, less than a year away, when Doodle could start school. On hot days, Doodle and I would go down to Horsehead Landing, and I gave him swimming lessons or showed him how to row a boat. Sometimes, we climbed the rope vines or boxed beneath a pine where he had learned to walk. School was only a few weeks away, and Doodle was far behind schedule. We decided to double our efforts, to make that last drive and reach our pot of gold. I made him swim until he turned blue, and row until he couldn't lift an oar. Wherever we went, I purposefully walked fast, and although he kept up, his face turned red, and his eyes became glazed. "Come on, Doodle," I urged. "You can do it! Do you want to be different from everybody else when you start school?" Does it make any difference? It certainly does. Now come on. During the hot August days, Doodle began to look feverish, and Mama asked him if he felt ill. At night he didn't sleep well, and sometimes he had nightmares, crying out until I touched him and said, "Wake up, Doodle. Wake up!" It was Saturday noon, just a few days before school was to start. I should have already admitted defeat, but my pride wouldn't let me. Suddenly, from the yard came a strange croaking noise. "It's a great big red bird!" Doodle called. On the topmost branch of the bleeding tree, a bird the size of a chicken with scarlet feathers and long legs was perching precariously. Its wings hung down loosely, and as we watched, a feather dropped and floated slowly down through the green leaves. "What is it?" Doodle asked. At that moment, the bird began to flutter, and with the spray of flying feathers, it tumbled down, landing at our feet with a thud. Its long, graceful neck jerked twice into an S, then straightened out, and the bird was still. A white veil came over the eyes, and the long white beak unhinged. Its legs were crossed, and its claw-like feet were delicately curved at rest. Even death did not mar its grace, for it lay on the earth like a broken vase of red flowers, and we stood around it, awed by its exotic beauty. "It's a scarlet ibis," Daddy said. "It lives in the tropics. A storm must have brought it here." "A scarlet ibis? How many miles did it travel to die like this, in our yard, beneath a bleeding tree?" "I'm going to bury him," Doodle said, kneeling next to it. "Don't you dare touch him," Mama warned. Through the front window, we watched Doodle take out a piece of string from his pocket and loop one end around its neck. He carried the bird around to the front yard and dug a hole in the garden, next to the petunia bed. When he came into the dining room, he found us eating our cobbler, and the two of us hurried off to Horsehead Landing once I had finished eating. When we reached the landing, Doodle said he was too tired to swim, so he got into a skiff and floated down the creek with the tide. After we had drifted a long way, I put the oars in place and made Doodle row back against the tide. Black clouds began to gather in the southwest, and he kept watching them, trying to pull the oars a little faster and a little faster. The sun disappeared, and darkness descended. Doodle was tired and frightened, and when he stepped from the skiff, he collapsed onto the mud. He had failed, and we both knew it. So we started back home, racing the storm. The faster I walked, the faster he walked, so I began to run. The rain was coming, roaring through the pines, and in the moment before it arrived, I heard Doodle, who had fallen behind, cry out, "Brother, don't leave me! Don't leave me!" The knowledge that Doodle's and my plans had come to nothing was bitter, and that streak of cruelty within me awakened. I ran as fast as I could, leaving him far behind with a wall of rain dividing us. Then I stopped and waited, but no one came. Finally, I went back and found him huddled beneath a bush beside the road. He was sitting on the ground, his face buried in his arms, which were resting on his drawn-up knees. "Let's go, Doodle," I urged. He didn't answer, so I placed my hand on his forehead and lifted his head. Limply, he fell backwards onto the earth. He'd been bleeding from the mouth, and his neck and the front of his shirt were stained a brilliant red. "Doodle! Doodle!" I cried, shaking him. But there was no answer, but the rain. His head was thrown far back, making his vermilion neck appear unusually long and slim. His little legs, bent sharply at the knees, had never before seemed so fragile, so thin. I began to weep, and for a long time, it seemed forever, I lay there crying, sheltering my fallen scarlet ibis from the heresy of rain. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bruce. There are 3 honourable mentions. That would be number 23, Electra Sierra. 27, Arietta Valmas, and 125, Artemis Vergos. Judges E. Sarandino, M. Salieri, and E. Theophanopoulou. Thank you.